team name? Does that matter? Can I just come up with anything?
Just list your 3 team members then.
Right.
Just so we can match you according to your submission on the registration on the site.
Okay.
We just gotta
Frinky has
put you in a
joined.
spreadsheet.
You're fucked.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit behind, I gotta say.
Okay,
Well, I mean,
I don't know,
you better
but you're
get
gonna make
cracking.
an
Oh,
entry,
I'm
and then you're gonna
I'm
fuck over
cracking.
Orbius games, and that's not very cool.
In more ways
may be
than one.
unplayable. It actually may be unplayable, but
Oh
it's fine.
yes, let's go. At least just you can launch it, and that's about it. It's about the playableness of it.
Okay. Justin has deposited models. We're taking some from like other projects now. We're at a bit of
I see.
yeah, that's
I
where
mean,
we're at.
Everything you see in Morbius Games official entry is handmade and
a quick tutorial. This one easy. I have fancy with anything and the camera, and in that case, data sound and camera. So in that case, try to change it to white. I'm going to drag it. We've got as this plan waiting, which we want to start out these settings close to it. We don't want any. We want it to. Camera, so it's in that case, if you start messing around with any of this, we're not going to do anything with it. And then I'm the WAV file down into app. With going to give us our audio, so I am just going to drag it over.
What is going on, everybody? Show you. So we do project purposes, and we're going to folder, and then we're going to go into the audio clip. So that is how to add music to the audio clip. Let's give it a go. Goodbye.
Here's how to play sound and audio source variable one-shot parameter.
Калашникова.
and this is going to give us our audio right attached to it. Then and you get and for
What is going on for let's create a new folder into it, and we are going to type now. We are going to go into that is how to add music to your but
Just sort of know that you want. Testing 0 or and automatically starts. It will play in the we go so anything like I move to it or 3D on destroy and load, and then have it on your game object.
I'm going to show you the play music. This is because some allow one of the audio source method of triggering a sound or an audio clip field. You must specify whatever clip is proper. This volume value of the audio source. As triggering play one shot like it would with. Be careful, sounds triggered via play one shot will count as 2 clip is set on the audio source and music. Sounds and music. Play delayed and play audio source. Delayed takes a delay in seconds and quickly changing the examples of when you would and other timing delaying the start of music, like stitch. This is value in source should start p time, so much so that end audio is considered audio source as they are viewed, not when the sound starts. Tweaks and method of triggering suitable for playing looping sounds and music. This is because some other methods hey guys, click on a different sound effect to play. Well, you can actually have different sound. So first, you can actually use one script to do it to play on your character controller or camera or whatever is within the scene. Sounds. I'm just going to call this sound. Rename that to sound. Different sound bites. Three of. So let's so object one. Duplicate it and then add this one. Three different sounds, or whatever is within the scene. So I'm just going to create three. So these are three different sound bites. These three objects from the last one, sound three. So they do on my object that will play cube. And let's click create short. Get rid of get.play, obviously. Add a tag to this. Obviously, this is how to add tags. They are very, very simple anyway. But yeah, in its simplest form, working, we just need to tick add. And now let's effect play. So I'm going to get our first. Oh, so the reason there. So now let's try that. Accidentally left on. So if we the ding, so we should be able to Back to this. Obviously, this is how to add. This is perfect. Which is let's press play and 3. This is our true triggers. Perfect. Let me play and have that again. Now let's try how the sim. I do have video on how. One and sound bites have the eyes affect you now. Yeah, obviously very so with the Terry that this is trigger effect. So I'm going to get our first. Oh, so the reason that's happened is so the first one is sound 1, and now let's press play. So I'm going to get our first. Oh,
Alright, let's play. I'm not gonna bother with that.
Welcome to the headquarters of the Vienna Symphonic Library.
Our game's look will be heard after we can add a component, and I'm gonna add in an audio source. And then you can just drag in that Pixelland audio clip. And once the level starts playing, all you have to determine goes with. You can just play. This is not state. This music player with XA, as you may have noticed with class, and then music. However, this is generally encouraged instantiate awake. That's game object. Now let's. We don't want, and we assets to double click that. Keep a reference to the sound. So let's do def.load. And then all you have to do is provide the name of your pass in a file, deputy object clip, and real quick, because we're gonna better
close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Oh, okay, so here we are. We actually made it into level. Cool. That's not a good sign that it worked. Yeah. I made the music way too loud. Rossi's been complaining about that. There's a severe lack of collision on that. I really can't hear anything. I'm sorry. If you're like saying something, it's just. No, sorry. I can't be playing my own game. You know, I think it is. There's an error in the main menu. Let me think. Oh, he's server muted. Full fast. That's the guy Frosty said. Yeah, but did that change the package version? Well, I fixed like the error in the main menu. I really want to fix that and make it standard so not have explosion mode. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah. You get a flag that, no, it's just a package, isn't it? Yeah, we'll upload that, I'm sure. Alright, we're done. That's the that we'll call it that. The enemies spawn on you immediately. They make there's things that are too loud and too quiet. That's perfect. That's exactly how it needs to be. Yeah, this package.
We're just getting ready to get started here. And just to confirm, all the speakers, you guys can mute and unmute. Everything should be good there. Yeah, okay, looking good. Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, I think now's a good time to get started here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the last day of the Game Jam Summit 2022. We're finally here. I want to first give a shout out to all the developers who have been crunching all week, busting ass, and you guys have submitted. I have so many emails to go through, and I can't wait to see what you guys have all created. Our plan for announcing the winner is through a video on my main channel next Friday, alongside the announcement here in this Discord. The winners will be contacted via email, but we also encourage you guys to, stay in this Discord for future game jams. I do want to continually host them all here moving forward. I would love to be able to do this again as the response to, not only the jam itself and the theme, but the Q&As have been really, really positive. So that's great. I couldn't have done any of this without Game Eye's involvement. They were crucial to bringing all of the guests together, coordinating meetings and emails, and all the discussions we've had over the last, I would say at this point, about meetings and emails, 5 months, all the discussions we've had over the last, I would say at this point, about so I want to give a big thank you to the Game Eye team, Sarah, Andrew, Sebastian, Lewis, everybody who we met on this journey. So thank you guys for all this. If you're an indie dev entering the multiplayer space, please head over to GameEye.com. Check them out. Their links to the website and the Discord will be posted in the speaker resources chat. And for those who weren't, at the other events, could I kick it to Andrew at GameEye to just give a little quick recap of what GameEye can provide indie developers in the space?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, GameEye is all about helping multiplayer game developers host their games effectively and easily. We hope to, make their lives better as a studio by just giving them an easy-to-use solution that's global and resilient. So no matter how many players show up, there'll always be capacity for their players to use. And we work with guys like Chivalry 2 at the high end, and we've got 2-man, 1-man studios as well at the other side. So all are welcome, and we love working with great multiplayer games. So thanks.
Awesome. And just to reiterate, guys, GameEye, myself, we've done a lot of work to put this on. We hope that you guys have found value in all of the Q&As, and again, we hope to do this in the future. So the last panel of the week is all about keeping the game alive. So today we're joined by Alexander from Loot Locker, Dan from Jaeger, as well as returning speaker Ben from Zebedee. If we could, let's do a little introduction. Let the people know what your roles are at your companies or studios. Say hello, and we can kick to the Q&A. And let's start with Alex.
Hi, I'm Alexander. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Loot Locker. Loot Locker is a plug-and-play cross-platform game backend, and basically helps you with a whole variety of services and systems that can help you retain players and help you engage your community when you're running a game, whether it's multiplayer or not.
Awesome, and let's go to Dan.
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Dan from Jaeger Development in Berlin, Germany, where I am the creative director on a game called The Cycle Frontier, which we're here to talk about live games. We're after a beta period going to launch in just a couple of weeks on the 8th of June.
Awesome, and Ben, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. I'm Ben. I lead business development for Zebedee. We are a very new frontier fintech that uses Bitcoin to allow games developers to make money flow seamlessly through their games, no matter what part of the world the player is in.
Awesome. So I have quite a few questions here for the panel. If you guys want to ask them any questions, there is a channel right above us, questions for speakers. Post them all here, and we'll try to continually keep the conversation flowing and kind of weave your guys' questions in there. So first and foremost, the idea of live ops, I want to start off right off the bat, because as somebody who covers games, we see time and time again games release with high hopes, multiplayer, big dreams, and then we find that they might fall off, 30, 45, 60 days after launch. In your experience, what's the biggest mistake that developers make about post-launch engagement, and how can they fix it? And that's a question for everybody.
It's a very broad question.
They all are.
Yeah. Unless anybody else jumps in, I would say that I think you need to plan for a long-term engagement, but it's also just as important to plan for short-term engagement, and make sure you have thought about the player's journey and how you can continue having them come back to the game, whether it's to earn more, unlock more content, or if it's more of a competitive aspect where they can stay at a high ranking, as a high rank themselves.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, all games are different, and so are their their life strategies and their goals with the live ops. So I think each game has their own needs and goals and problems, but I think there's still a couple of common problems that are like pet peeves of mine. And I think one of the big ones where I think to myself like, oh, I really don't want to do that, is not treating the audience like intelligent people. Because how you communicate about your game is also a big part of live ops. So talking to them as if through an abstract PR stream rather than having a conversation, is something that I think leads to alienating and frustrating often the very core of your audience. So be transparent, honest, and clear, and treat it as a dialogue, which leads to just a happier community and better decision making.
I'll reiterate that. The more you can message to your community and let them know what's happening, especially from behind the development side, so they know what to look forward to, and then making sure that everyone gets the message. Just posting in Discord isn't always enough. Is never enough. So it's important to make sure that you're spreading the news across all your various accounts and wherever your players might find you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think one of the ways games developers prepare for live ops is, in content creation in the run up to going live, so to speak. And you hear a lot of studios in the run up to that saying, okay, we've got, approximately a month's worth of content or 3 months worth of content or 90 minutes worth of content. And that, broadly speaking, works, but there's also a gameplay element that needs to be considered, and often is by good teams. But when you're engaging with your community, as the folks just mentioned, it's helpful if there's kind of like a very simple mini game or game loop or activity that the player can remain engaged with, while more content comes, or in support of the broader live ops. I know that's a bit abstract and broad, but I think of that as a key game design component.
I'd add on that actually is you should also make sure that you understand what your audience actually is doing in the game, because running my first game studio fell into the trap of thinking that content was the important thing, and that wasn't really driving that much more usage from the players, but we thought that was the case because we saw people reacting across social media to the content. But we should have actually been spending time building more systems that would have kept people coming back, rather than building more content.
I was going to kind of jump on what you guys said about communication. Is there, how can I word it? We see a lot of different studios kind of form a lot of different strategies. You guys mentioned like the PR route, or just, very, very transparent. Is there a such thing as over communication? Oh, like kind of. Like how do you guys handle the messaging and keeping players' expectations in check with those communications when you're dealing with social media?
I mean, to me, it comes down to, like I said, just being really clear and honest and transparent. I think if that's what you're doing, you're not really over communicating. I think sometimes it feels like only communication because the communication is abstract and unclear. So for me, it again comes back to really treating your audience like adults, and a proper dialogue, and not just receivers of PR.
I agree.
I think 100%. Yeah, I mean, with what we do with our community and with what the developers building on us are doing with their community, with 99.9% of the time we're handling money, and we're talking about players trying to pull money out of a game, collect a reward, And obviously people get very frustrated if the user experience or expectations aren't met when it comes to money and promises of money. So yeah, and we've seen it time and time again. You've just got to be completely straight with what's going on. If you're soft launching, tell your community to expect bugs and to be patient. If something's going wrong on service provision end, just tell them what you know and say you're working on a fix. Trying to cover up what you're doing just for the sake of platitudes, it doesn't work. It quickly gets seen through. So yeah, I think Dave's made a really good point.
And then I would say, when it comes to over communicating, I would say that you can never over communicate, but I think you can become beholden to feel like you need to communicate all the time. And sometimes it's important, you can't always tell everybody what you're doing all the time, because sometimes you need to focus on building the game and not sitting on Discord and answering questions. So it's important to not overcommit yourself to a communication plan that you can't maintain throughout the year.
I think there's another big, just to tie the whole thing together, like a big lesson that ties into a lot that has been said, which is really the reminder that it's a marathon and not a sprint. So I think that's another kind of very high level statement that some games and teams I think struggle with, which is putting a lot of emphasis on the launch when the actual goal, I believe, often at least when it comes to live ops, is long-term growth. This, of course, then comes down to everything: how you communicate, how you plan your updates, and the engagement loops that you were talking about. It's the whole thing, really. Marathon, not a sprint.
Right. Alex, you had mentioned with a previous game studio about building out more features. Can you kind of give insight into how Loot Locker solves some of those issues, or could provide devs with the tools to be able to do that?
Yeah, so what Loot Locker does is it sort of shifts a lot of the game into the cloud, so that you can have certain systems like progression or leaderboards, various triggers and stuff like that connected to a web interface that you can manage remotely and update when the game is live. But you also have content management, so you can have new levels or skins or anything that fits in your game can live on the back end and then either be activated and deactivated, edited, or you can even push new content if you've set your game up correctly to be able to add new content to your game whenever you want. So you don't have to build a new version of the game, especially if you've got a game that's on multiple platforms, or any of the platforms that require testing before it goes live. It saves you a lot of time, and you can, if you plan ahead, you can have your Halloween and Christmas content in the game ready to go, and then you can activate it remotely exactly when Halloween happens, so you don't have to try to time a release exactly on the day of Halloween, or activate a XP bonus on the weekend without having to work all the way up there and ship a potentially buggy game. So it's trying to give you the ability to do what you see a lot of these bigger studios do. And we built it at my first company, where we had a game as a service called Snow, which was a free-to-play open world winter sports game, and allowed a team of less than 10 people to manage a couple 100,000 monthly active users with live ops essentially.
Awesome. And I'll actually kick it to Ben for this one. So you mentioned in the intro, Zebedee powers developers and players with Bitcoin. Could you kind of give a little bit more insight into how it works and kind of what your thoughts are for the future of, integrating crypto into the gaming space?
Yeah, sure. I think the key from our perspective is not to get too triggered by the word Bitcoin and all that it immediately makes fly out of your head, right? It immediately makes people go like, oh, okay, blockchain, crypto, Web3, etc. We're very focused on one thing, and that is actually separate crypto from the discussion for a moment. Payments and value transfer in games is something that games developers really struggle to do. And this is what underpins Epic's Apple lawsuit and general movements to get away from the shackles of the App Store payment systems. It's getting your fair share as a developer out of in-app purchases in your game is difficult, and then enabling economic activity in games is difficult. Most of the time due to regulation, actually, and nothing to do with technology. So if you want two players to be able to meet in an online world, and it's like, hey, I like your hat, I'll give you a couple of bucks for it, and someone says, hey, sure, okay, cool, let's do it. Doing that in game is really difficult. Now, most of the time it's done in gray markets, so people will transact through eBay and PayPal, and then they'll meet in game, and there's a huge degree of trust and a lot of fraud, obviously, that goes on. What we have built is a system. It's a simple API. It's a payments API to allow players to meet in these game worlds and trade with each other, sell each other their items, trade skins, pay each other, but also games to pay out to users, users to pay in, equally the audience to pay in. So streamers can be players, an audience watching a streamer can both tip the streamer directly in real time, but also send money into the game and cause things like power-ups to drop in the map and with the viewer's name on it and things like that. So when you make money work in games, you really create this kind of interwoven system where value transfer is interoperable and open and works. And we picked Bitcoin as the platform atop which to build on this. And it was for a few reasons. The first was mainly regulatory, actually, which is really boring, but it's important. You can't send money around the world yet on altcoin rails. It's due to the law, right? They're just unregulated. So if you are a proper business, like a real business, like Electronic Arts, or someone like a AAA developer, you can't deal with a system where there's no bank account in the US that will take the funds you're receiving. And equally, you're not going to get regulated as a money transmitter, where you're going to have to collect all your players' driving licenses and things like that. These things just aren't going to happen. But when you deal in Bitcoin, you can actually build atop that system because it is sufficiently regulated. We've gone and acquired all the licenses to do that, and then we can allow developers to basically plug these APIs in, and they can have value transfer completely native in their game. There's no credit card prompts or anything that comes up. It's just a button, and you click it, and a payment is sent to the player. They receive it in real time. And we also recognize that the vast majority of people in the world do not care about crypto. Like they just don't care. And if you give it to them, even for free, they sell it. They want the money, right? They want to get back into their bank account. So that's the service we focus on delivering, that a user should be able to connect their bank account to a game, and then payments should be seamless, and they should be bi-directional. Does that answer your question? That's kind of how we think about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I really appreciate that you are, on the button when it comes to the reaction that most gamers have about, crypto and Web3. It's a very controversial subject. I really appreciate you kind of diving into it and giving us your insight, because yeah, it's a hot button topic right now for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, we that's why we think about trust and building trust, and we're essentially using Bitcoin as a rail. We're not really caring about the asset itself. We're using it as a vehicle because it's natively digital. It is inherently software. Now we can make value transfer happen. And so if you're again, thinking about a big games company, if you're a US based company and you want to send a player in India $1, on existing financial infrastructure, as a bank transfer or through PayPal, it'll cost you more than $1 to send $1. So by necessity, you need to use a digital rail. And so we picked one of them, and we picked Bitcoin because we're not that way. That way, we're not issuing our own token. So incentives are aligned. We're actually just providing a service, and we don't care about Bitcoin itself. We're just using it to swap in and out of currencies to let people transact globally.
Awesome. No, great answer, great explanation.
Thank you.
I want to bring Dan into the conversation here as well. Seeing as a game like The Cycle, I would say really relies on player engagement. You guys said you're getting ready to launch. I've actually participated in a few of the betas as well. What are some things that you guys are focusing on to keep that retention and engagement high when you do go to launch?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think all games are different. But for us, the way we've looked at it is we look at the Cycle Frontier as a really, for free-to-play games of service, unusually emotional game. So for us, an important component that I think ties into this is making sure that we have a core recipe where you never know what to expect, really. So of course, we do things like daily login rewards and live events and season passes and whatnot. But it really starts for us with a core gameplay that is tense and dramatic, and that just leads to unpredictable drama that you share with other players, and that stays that way also after repeated play. So a lot of it is really just in the core formula, like how we mix PvE and PvP that results in new situations. But it's also a recipe that lends itself well to new content to be added as we're live. And without disrupting, the content that's already there. So those regular updates are also an integral part in changing up the game and making sure that it feels fresh. And lastly, like I said before, it also comes down to the way we talk with our community, so that when we do add post-launch content, it's content that the community actually wants. So it's basically, in summary, a kind of replayable and unpredictable core recipe that we can add stuff to easily, and where we know that stuff is what our players actually want, because we have an open dialogue with them.
Awesome. I'm gonna go back to Ben and Alex here. Your guys' tools need to be kind of integrated into a game developer's systems. How easy is it to attach a Zebedee kind of API or a Loot Locker API to these games that they're making? And it kind of ties into a question we got here too. When in development do these devs start thinking about integrating these sort of tools? What, in your guys' experience, what do you see?
Alex, do you want to go first on the Loot Locker API, and I can answer the question about crypto and development that came in the chat.
Sure. Loot Locker's API can be implemented depending on your game engine. We have SDKs for Unreal and Unity, and working on SDKs for all the other major platforms, which makes it pretty much plug and play. We're trying to provide a huge amount of documentation and videos and support, because our belief is that every game should use or should take advantage of the backend as much as possible. So when you want to implement it is sort of depending on your own aspirations, but definitely before you launch, one of the big benefits of having a backend is that you're creating a closer relationship between you as a game developer and your players, because the players' data remains in Loot Locker, which is your data, and allows you to track who's played your game, and reward them, and interact with them in a whole new way.
APIs are our API is pretty similar. We're a standard REST API. We basically say if it speaks HTTP, it'll speak ZBD. But we've seen the cool thing, I guess, is that's worth highlighting. Apart from that, it's very simple. But the cool thing is we've seen developers integrate us in as little. The record so far is 3 days to actually playable build, which pays out Bitcoin. But it very much is just a payment rail. So you connect it, and it can plug into existing games, and it can plug into games that are already live. You essentially just swap out whatever your current reward mechanic is, be it gems or some other soft currency, and you replace the reward window or the modal window with our thing, and then you can collect Bitcoin from the app. And we can also, you don't need to download our app to give players Bitcoin either. We've separated that process, so you can show them the experience of winning, and the funds are essentially held in escrow until the player claims the Bitcoin, the Satoshis. But just on the question about when you do this, because I think that's a really good question, and it links to why you would do it as well. I can give you a very commercial answer, which is that we've now consistently seen across 11 or 12 games in the App Store that have implemented our payment rail that retention doubles. ARPDAU has increased in the range of 20 to 60%. in some markets north of 300 or 400%. Those are emerging markets, though, so very, very different profiles. And it's just a very simple hook for driving long lifetime value of your players, to actually reward them with something financial. And the method for that is to essentially share a fraction of your revenue as a developer with that player base. But it's got to feel normal, and it's got to actually be part of gameplay. One of the best games that showcases that's powered by us right now is a studio called Thumb Games, FUMB, out of the UK, have released a game called Bitcoin Miner, and it's a simulation of mining Bitcoin, but it's all a joke. It's an idle game, and it's kind of silly and fun, except it actually pays you real Bitcoin. So now that game has a purpose, and that game was dead 4 years ago because it was just a game where you faked mining, but you didn't get anything. And so obviously the churn was high. People didn't see the utility. Now that game has utility, and it's that studio's top performing game of all of the games they've released. It's outperforming their merge game. It's outperforming all of their casual games. So yeah, it just goes to show I think a lot of this Web3 gaming stuff, the reason it rubs gamers the wrong way is because it sounds like nonsense, looks like nonsense, and probably will prove to be nonsense. So it's got to be done in a way that feels very organic and like it's going to be an entertainment experience, because that's what gaming really is.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Every time the topic comes up about, crypto and Web3, we always just ask, like, where's the value for the player? Because we see the value for the people implementing it because they're making money hand over fist if people adapt to it. But the player itself, it seems to get left behind in a lot of those conversations. So that's good that you guys are thinking that way.
Thanks. Yeah, it's what it was a big factor in us choosing not to issue our own token. But there's also some practicality bits. We just try and step out of it. We're providing the payment rail. If you want money in your games, we're a very good solution for that. We try not to get political about all the other stuff.
For sure. I had a question for Dan. Seeing as we're talking about the cycle, I've been a fan of the cycle since its initial kind of announcement and first release. And following the development, we've seen the game kind of turn from what it was back then to a lot of people are kind of relating it to a more of like a Tarkov extract